second. Okay, perfect. Boom. Okay, boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have an incredible guest with us here today, Brother Alex, who we're going to get some amazing information from, as well as inspiration from. First of all, assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam, brother.
Yes, sir. We look forward to hearing your amazing life journey. The first question that we have for you, sir, is when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
That's always somewhat of a difficult question for me because my age, I was born in 1970 and I was born in New York, Brooklyn, New York. And the reason I mention that is because of the heavy influence of the 5%ers. And I think sometimes that it gets lost of how influential they were. There was an article once written called the Gods of the Ghetto. And it was speaking about the 5%ers because for a time they were. You know, I'm sure anybody that's my age or around that age, they can tell you stories of young 5%ers in class going toe-to-toe with the teacher, the science teacher, the history teacher. And the rest of us were like just head spinning because he's just 12. You know, or he's 13 years old and he's going back and forth with the teacher and you're seeing the teacher get rattled and then the fact that most of them at the time were young. Like now you have a lot of brothers who've been in that for a while, but back then most of the brothers were younger. And it's like when I say a street organization, I don't mean like a gang, but a lot of their activities transpired in the streets. And the only time you were inside is because you couldn't come out because you weren't studying. So you were inside studying so that when you came out, you could handle the onslaught of questions and being confronted about what you knew or didn't know, how well you could represent what you said or had. Quick story, just to kind of illustrate how prominent, because it's part of how I came to the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. My mother is from North Carolina. And every summer, my cousins and I, we would go to North Carolina. My oldest male cousin is a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. So he was very tall, muscular, handsome guy. He always wore purple and gold and he had brands on his arm. I had never seen that. So one summer we go down and he's telling us about Omega Psi Phi. He's telling us the brands, did they hurt? Yeah, it hurt. Telling us about pledging, the things they had to do, fights they got in. So he's got my attention. He's got all of our attention. I go back home to New York, to Brooklyn, and I'm on the corner with my friends. And now I have their attention. I'm telling them what my cousin told me. I said, they got this thing down there called the Q Dogs, and they got brands on their arm, and they fight, and they do this, and they have to do all of these things to join. And I'm on the soapbox. Everybody's listening. So one of my friends said, yeah. He said, but is they mightier than the gods? And I thought about it. And I said, nah, they're not mightier than the gods. So they all shrugged and said, well, what the hell are we talking about them for? And they never came up again. So that was the standard. And it was the standard up until crack. Because when crack came, it was almost like the crack dealers became the gods of the ghetto. And a lot of the 5%ers became crack dealers. And that's what happened to me because I had joined the 5%. And I got caught up in that shift. So now I start running around and getting into doing dirt. But I would be with friends that were older than me that were 5%ers. And for years, I would be with them and it would be right on the tip of my tongue for them to teach me. But my pride wouldn't allow me to ask them because I couldn't see my friends as my teachers. And I said, for years, this would happen because I always had friends that were 5%ers. So I knew that once I started getting locked up and going to prison, I knew that was something I was going to pick back up. And it helped me. Oh, now you asked, when did I first hear the teaching of Elijah Muhammad? It was through the 5%ers, but I didn't know I was hearing the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad because I never heard the name. I didn't know who Honorable Elijah Muhammad was. And it never crossed my mind to ask anybody, well, where the lessons come from? Who wrote them? Or who's asking and answering the questions? It just never crossed my mind to ask. And I guess some of the brothers were so young, I just never heard the name. But that exposure, when I got into prison, that was like my Geiger counter, because you had the Moor Science Temple, you had the Sunni Muslims, you had the Nation of Islam, you had brothers from the East, Africans, Arabs, what have you. You had a lot of Muslims, a lot of Islam in the prison, but I always listened for that familiar wording, words and phrases that I used to hear in the lessons. That's how I knew, because I really didn't know anything. And now you had at the time the strange thing, because myself and the brothers that came in the system around the late 80s were the first wave of young brothers that the government started to lock up. That was a new thing that started with the crack laws and the mandatory minimums. So this was the first time young Black guys were being introduced to the federal system. And mind you, I heard Brother Jabril say, and brother, you might have to keep me on track. Brother Jabril once said that everywhere the Honorable Elijah Muhammad walked, he left something there for the believers that came after him. Meaning, you know, Phoenix, Arizona, Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit, something there that he left. But we also know he walked for 4 years in the federal prison system, not the state, in the federal prison system. One time I asked Brother Abdullah, the National Prison Reform Minister, how come in the back of the paper it says we want freedom for all believers in Islam now held in federal prison? I asked him, why does it not say county jails, state lockups, city jails? And he said, because when you say federal, you're talking directly to Pharaoh. So that's who had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it was nothing to find back then material with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's signature on it. I didn't think anything of it, because this was my introduction to Islam. It wasn't until like 2010 when Minister Farrakhan was speaking about correspondence between Brother Jabril and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he, at one point, he showed one of the letters, and he said, those of you who, recognize the messenger's signature, you see it. And I heard some of the believers, wow. And I remember I was on post that day, and I said, that must be a big deal. I didn't know it was a big deal, because in prison we had so much material with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's signature on it. Then I started to think back about how faded it was. I said, that material must have been in there for 40, 50 years, just floating around in the system. But what was also floating around in the system is you had brothers who had been locked up for like 25, 20 years, like prior to 75. So the enemy locks all of these young brothers up who had been listening to Public Enemy, had been listening to Rakim, and some of who had been 5%ers. Then we go into the federal system, and you running into these, I call them dinosaurs. But these brothers, they look like they had been in there preserved. They'd been working out, their skin was shining, and they were very super militant. So we ran into them. Some of us, paid more attention to them than others. But at the time, I still didn't accept become a part of the Nation of Islam. My goal was to dive back into the lessons of the 5%, and I did that. I had an old manual typewriter where I typed all the lessons out, just because, from the student enrollment all the way to Lost Found lesson number 2. And I can't type. Well, I can type now, but I couldn't type then. And I learned all of the lessons. And at a certain point, I became like the young guy to see, because you had older 5%ers that were there, that they weren't like following behind me, but the younger brothers that wanted to learn, they knew I was the one to come to. That's all I really did. But at the same time, I used to like to smoke weed, and I used to like to drink jailhouse wine called hooch. But I also like to read. Yes.
Yes, sir. And this is the wine that's made in the toilet?
Well, you can make it in the toilet. I mean, people, that just sounds better when people say it. I know people who have made it in the toilet, but we used to put it in the ceiling.
Okay.
But
and how do you make it in the ceiling? How do you make it in the ceiling?
Well, when I say making it, you hide it, because you take the bread, the sugar, and the bread, the sugar. What else is in it? See, that's good. I forgot how to make hooch. But you have to have somewhere for it to sit and ferment. So that's why they say they make it in the toilet, because that's just where you hide it. You know, you put it in the ceiling because that's where you're hiding it. So you're giving it time to ferment. So that's what I was into at the time. But I also like to read. And since I was so much into the lessons, I really used to like to read what I used to call them Elijah Muhammad, because it was only in the books of Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the people that were taught or influenced by him that I heard the language. You know, I always liked to hear the language of the lessons. And so one night, you know, my friends and I, we had smoked. And at a certain point, I would always excuse myself because, like I said, I like to smoke and I like to read. So I really like to read after I had smoked. So I go to my cell, and I think it was Hadi to Live. I could never remember which book I was reading. And, you know, how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would say, Allah, be the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom all praises due forever. He says it a lot. And I would kind of like breeze over that, because he said it a lot. And this particular night, when I read over that, it stopped me in my tracks. Like if I would have been walking, I would have stopped in my tracks. But I was laying there and I read it and I just stopped. And those words kept going around in a circle in my head. Allah came in the person, Master Muhammad, to whom all praises due forever. And it kept going around to the point where I believed it, you know, or I understood it. I'm not sure which one. And there was a train of thought from there, because after I looked at it, I started thinking about it. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, there's always one. There's got to be somebody that's wiser than everybody else and more powerful than everybody else. And if it's not Master Fard Muhammad, it's somebody else. But it's got to be Master Fard Muhammad, because I had been studying the lessons. And I knew that the things that were in the lessons, nobody was saying it before, and that they all added up. You know, it's like, so like the movies, they say they can be but one. So say, who's this one person? You're looking at the actual facts and the, you know, the figures of the temperature of the sun and how fast the planets rotate and their distance from the sun and you know, the speed of thought, the diameter of the universe. It's got to be. And then my thoughts went to the Quran. I said, okay, if Allah is the best knower and Master Fard Muhammad is Allah in person, the Quran says, well, yeah, when it says Allah is the best knower, I said that means that he knows best. And if he knows best, he set up the Nation of Islam. He gave us restrictive laws, you know, all the things that I'm doing, he said you shouldn't do. And now I'm starting to get nervous because I know what I'm doing, but I can't stop. I'm thinking myself, reading myself into a corner, because now I believe. And then the last thing I thought about was, I used to like to read military books as well. And I had read something once that said, a soldier is that unique individual that actually lives what he believes. And that hit me because I believe now. And the reason I was getting nervous because the conclusion was, I guess I have to join the Nation of Islam. But I didn't want to, but I believed, which meant I had, the way I was, I had to. And I wrestled with that in that cell. And to be honest with you, brother, that was almost 30 years ago. I wrestle with it now because it was never really my desire to join the Nation of Islam, but I believed. And so I had always hung out with brothers that were FOI, because that first group that I mentioned, the older brothers that had been in for 20 years, and they had been in prior to 75, I respected them and I learned a lot from them, but I couldn't see myself being them. They were just from a different generation. They had been, like I said, they'd been in prison all this time, and just the way they were, I didn't see that. But what happened, you had younger brothers like myself, who instead of becoming 5% or more Science Temple or Orthodox Sunni Muslims, they started really being taught by these brothers. And since the young brothers had so much time, and the older brothers were about to go home, that's how we ran into them, because they were coming down in levels from the penitentiaries. A lot of us were so young, that was our first real bid. So we were in the lower levels. So they were coming out, we were going in, and we collided there. and they started teaching these brothers. And since the young brothers were going to be in prison so long, they wanted to set up houses. Because a lot of the older one, they were just passing through. They're about to go home. So when you look at them, you saw FOI, but there was no structure. There was no actual place. So the young brothers, with the help of the older brothers, started setting up mosque in the prisons. And two brothers, Brother Rodney and Brother Johnny, they were very good friends of mine. They were both around my age. Brother Johnny was a little older. And I credit these two with bringing me into the Nation of Islam, even though they never tried to fish me in. They never asked me to join, because I looked like I had my own thing. I had the 5%ers, and I had students, and there was nothing about me except for the fact that I hung around with them that would even make them think I was interested in the Nation of Islam. And when I had that, maybe you call it an epiphany in myself, I never told anybody. But I'm thinking about, I know I have to join, but I'm not telling anybody. I didn't tell them the 5% brothers. I didn't tell them the FOI brothers. It's just something I was wrestling with myself. So one day, Brother Johnny was coming. Oh, and what I mean when I say they fished me in without fishing me in was as we would talk and we would walk, because you know how people, sometimes believers, if you're with people that don't believe, you kind of get pulled into what they do. But what I liked about these two brothers is, even though they were hanging with me and I wasn't in the Nation of Islam, and we were talking about the streets and we were talking about things that we did, they never really broke their discipline. They didn't say anything to me that they couldn't have said around the brothers. So the more I hung out with them, I started, without realizing it, saying that, I could do that. I can do what they're doing. And to jump forward just a second, that I experienced that when I came home. Because when I came home, I was on minister security with Brother Hafiz, and I had funny hours. So you had brothers who used to hustle on my block, and they'd see me come home in a suit and a bow tie, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I'd come in at 2 o'clock and they see me come back out at 3:30 in a suit, a different suit, different. So one night I'm coming home and one of these brothers was there by himself. And when I passed by him, he said, what do you do? And he never let me answer. He said, because I could do what you do. Whatever you're doing, I could do that. But that was my experience with Brother Johnny and Brother Rodney. I could do that, So one Brother Johnny, FOI class was on, I believe it was Sundays. And we were so close, on his way to FOI class, he just stopped by my block just to, give me the greetings. And I told him, brother, I'm gonna come with you. He said, what you mean? I said, I'm gonna go stand up. And he was like, brother, are you sure? Because it was just out of nowhere. We had never had a conversation. I said, yes, I'm for real. So I went and I joined the Nation of Islam that day.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Excellent. Wonderful. Okay. Yes, sir. So, Brother Alex, so we got so many follow-up questions for you. My sister Naima sends the greetings, and thank everybody who continues to watch, like, share, and subscribe to People's Podcast. Now, Brother Alex, let's go back. We're gonna get about you coming out, but I want to we'll go back to you going back in. But let's talk about Minister Abdul Hafiz. May Allah be pleased with him. Yes, sir. Yes. What was it like for you to secure him and be around him? What was that like?
Brother Hafiz. Well, can I start with when I found out that he had passed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The morning I had pulled up my phone. I was still in bed, and I saw it on Facebook. And I don't know if it's prison or whatever, but I have a way of shutting down. And that morning, it's almost like I could hear the windows in my soul just closing, And so what I'm saying, I didn't feel anything, but I know myself. I knew what I was doing. And that particular day, I had a lot of things to do. So I'm running. Now, remember, I was in the federal system. So my friends, my closest friends that are believers are in other states. So, Brother Paul calls from Oklahoma because they know I'm here with Brother Hafiz. Brother Paul calls from Oklahoma. Brother Fred calls from Florida. Brother Johnny calls from Georgia. Brother Mike calls from San Francisco. And I'm having these conversations with them about Brother Hafiz, but those windows are still closed. But it wasn't until that night I came home and my wife and I were having dinner, and I started to speak about our first officer here in Brooklyn, Brother Salim, because he was the head of Minister Security when I came home. And he and I, as Muslims in our 20s, we used to spend hours in my car sitting in front of Brother Hafiz's home. And when I came home, Brother Hafiz was only 36 years old. So he used to like to hang out with the brothers. And so we spent a lot of time with them. And as I was saying this to my wife, it just came up, and I had to stop myself from talking because I felt the emotion coming up. And even though, I could have in front of my wife, but I didn't. So I just stopped talking. And she, my wife watched me. And then I was actually working for Brother Salim at his company. And this is, of course, the beginning of, the pandemic, what have you. And I would ride the subway to work. And because of the lockdown, I would be the only one in the subway car. And for 5 days, brother, I cried on that subway on the way to work. And I dreaded seeing Brother Salim because that's how we got to know each other. And I was afraid to see him because I didn't know how it would affect me. And I believe it might have been on the 5th day. He comes in and, it's a big, long table, like a conference room table. He's sitting on one end. I'm sitting on the other. We're supposed to be talking business. And so I sit down and he says, our brother. And I've never experienced nothing like that. Maybe I should just start just crying just for the sake, but I fought. And the brother, he sat and I fought the tears for, I don't know, it seemed like it could have been like 20 minutes, but I know I must have been turning red. I'm sweating because I didn't want to break down. I just didn't want to break down. But it took me a while to gather myself. And and I believe that now, mind you, the whole time I've been out, I haven't been in the ranks because I told you when I sat in that cell and I wrestled, I still wrestle with that. But I have to, it reminds me of what Minister Farrakhan told Jesse Jackson when he said, you want to be president. He said, but they'll never let you be president because they know you have too much God in you. And that every time, and you only go but so far until the God in you pulls you back. Mm-hmm. That's how brother, I will be perfectly honest with you. I've done like 10-year stretches out of the mosque. And the God in me always pulls me back. So outside that initial period, I think it was about 2 years of driving Brother Hafiz and getting to know Brother Hafiz. And quick story about Brother Hafiz, because I believe that the reason why his passing affected me because I've cried more over Brother Hafiz than I've cried over anybody I've ever known, family members included. And I believe it's because I love a teacher. I love a teacher. And when I was away, myself and the brothers that we roll with, we studied all the time. And my greatest desire when I came home was to continue my learning and continue my training. And Brother Hafiz was a type that if you were with him, you're going to hear some Islam. And I like to say that if you bend down to tie your shoe, he was going to teach you how to bend down and tie your shoe like a Muslim all day. And I remember one particular event, when you have these events and you prepare and you pass out the flyers and, it's just on the schedule. This day, we're doing this. We want to make sure the attendance is up. We had an event like that. So the day of the event, Brother Hafiz is in like a green room and I'm on the door and he sticks his head out and he says, brother, are the people reading the flyers? And I said, let me go check. He says, go check. You mean you don't know? He said, brother, for you to have come through what you just come through, you had to see everything. He said, you had to be 360. He said, that's why I got you here. He said, don't come out here and lose that. I need you to be 360 out here too. And I always remember that, you know. So just little things like that, because you know we talk a lot, but how many times does somebody tell you something that sticks with you and it actually becomes a part of how you move and how you do things, you know? And Brother Hafiz was good for doing that. He taught me. I had a 1987 Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra with red seats, and he used to break down all the time. And one day we were riding, just he and I said something like about my car, disparaging about my car. He said, "No, brother." He said, "Never curse the vehicle that's getting you where you got to go." He said, we ride in it, brother. Don't curse it. It's getting us where we got to go. So now, as far as what your question, what was it like securing Brother Hafiz? And I'll say this. This is from my vantage point. Brother Hafiz, if not he's one of the greatest ministers we've had in New York. Because in New York, you've had a lot of ministers that have come to the Nation of Islam with gifts already. And I believe that when we come in, a lot of us, our trial is the student enrollment. I think a lot of us stumble when it comes to the student enrollment because we skip over where it says the Department of Supreme Wisdom, student enrollment, and then we jump to the questions. But if we don't really understand being students in the Department of Supreme Wisdom or students enrolling into the Department of Supreme Wisdom, there's a certain, maybe arrogance that we may hold on to. Because as I was told when I first, it doesn't matter if you were an actual rocket scientist. They didn't teach you this. You're a student when you come here. And I watched, again, Brother Hafiz was 36 years old, and he had a reputation for being a minister captain because he loved to be around the brothers so much. And he was always teaching, always training. And he told me once, the Minister Farrakhan told him that he needed him to be more of a minister. And I observed him struggling to do what his teacher asked, even as it made him slightly less effective. Because by that time he had his own style of teaching. And I would be on post with him and I would feel him struggling to be what the minister asked him to be. But he wasn't as effective, not because he was asked to do something wrong, but it's almost like when you see a brother try to grow a beard. He has to go through that rough period before he gets it, you know. Or a sister trying to grow dread, you got to go through that rough period.
Yes, sir.
Know?
Yes, sir.
So he was going through that transition of trying to be more spiritual as opposed to the Brooklyn brother Kevin. And I would be on post and I would feel his struggle. And that made my respect for him jump, because that's a hurdle a lot of other ministers weren't able to jump. I used to study, and I used to study the press conference when the minister sat Brother Khalid down. And for some reason, I used to just study that. We had it in prison. And I would just be, sometimes I'd be in a room by myself and I would just be watching it. And the part that used to catch me was when the minister said, "I have warned Brother Khalid several times about his manner of representing the truth." I don't know if that's a direct quote. And I would sit and say, how does the minister have to warn you several times? You know, but I also remember the minister saying that when you're black, a black man born in this world grows up starved of recognition. And that the only time you get recognized is if you're doing something for white people. You're entertaining them, you're making them laugh, you're playing sports, you're running their country, you're running their government, you're running their business. That's the only time we really get recognition. And well, that's still Brother Khalid. But Brother Hafiz, he didn't stumble over that, because we've had other ministers that the minister asked to do things, and that personal desires caused them to reject that. Brother Hafiz wasn't like that. Remember, Brother Hafiz was always the backup minister. Somebody would move from New York, or somebody would be set up, somebody would leave, Brother Hafiz would fill in. So he was there with one of my favorite ministers, Brother Abdullah Muhammad. He was there with Brother Kareem. He was there with Brother Conrad and Brother Ben Chavis, and I know I'm probably missing somebody, but he was there through all of them, and he died on his post. You know, and that's not to take. Well, he died on his post, and as well as Brother Abdullah. And you know, that's what I take, and that's what the main thing I wanted to say. I thank you for the opportunity to say that about Brother Hafiz publicly, because that's my like I said, I felt him. I felt him trying to do what he was asked to do by his teacher.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. People are showing you love. Brother Joseph sends the greetings. My sister's name is praise be to Allah. Beautiful. And thank everyone who continues to like, share, subscribe to the People's Podcast. Okay, yes, sir, Brother Alex. I want to ask you a question about crime.
Sure.
So I'm actually working on a podcast that the centers around that we're probably going to do this month. And I was telling my sisters, they think that I haven't cried since my brother got shot. That's like 12 years ago. And I'm saying, is that I get therapy, we get audited, that's you want to work it out as black men, you want to let it out, like you said, let it out. Yeah. But your thoughts, as you said, you were struggling with it. Is it okay? The subject that I want to ask is it okay for men to cry in public?
That's tricky. I know, like in martial arts, I've heard certain people say that you have certain martial artists that will never reveal an injury in public. Mm-hmm. I mean, not even in a fight, just like in a restaurant, it's just a condition to not reveal the fact that their knee is bad or back is out today, because it can be used against you. Generally speaking, I don't think there's anything wrong. However, you can do things, you can say things, and it triggers other things that you don't want. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's anything wrong with it, but you can cry in front of the wrong people. They'll take it the wrong way. And you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us to not to pray, like make salat things in public. He said, because when you do something like that people don't understand, you open up yourself to be mocked because they don't know what you're doing. So, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also said that misunderstanding is the hell of man. That's one of my favorite sayings from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that?
Misunderstanding is the hell of man. So if misunderstanding is the hell of man, I don't want to do anything that's going to be misunderstood. So crying in public in front of the wrong people could be misunderstood, and then that might come back to revisit. But in and of itself, I'm saying no. But, and I guess maybe that's from being in prison or maybe in the streets that, you have certain characters that you can't even be nice to some people, You can't even smile around some people, much less cry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that, that Prophet Muhammad said that the differences in my people are a blessing. And people are just so different that, you may be around a certain group of people that it's cool, even if they're strangers. Then some, you just get that feeling, that's not, it's almost like hope, like with all of the shootings that's going on now. I saw that coming, and I would tell people, I said, it's about to get bad. In the beginning of the lockdown. Why? Because when I came home, this is after former Mayor Giuliani had so-called cleaned up, and he did a lot. A lot of things that people were doing before I went away, you didn't see it. They were calling New York the safest city. You couldn't drink beers on the street and do things like that. But as soon as the lockdown, I would go in the subway, I'd smell cigarettes. You would see people with beers on the street. You would see the dog feces popping up more. See, certain people have an antenna. See, It's like Brother Hafiz used to say. He said, you know, you always got to mention the hypocrites, right? Talk about on the roster. He said, you always got to mention the hypocrites so they can keep their head low. So the way that New York was regulated, a lot of people kept their head low. The cameras and the amount of police they hired, but they were like hibernated. And as soon as they saw things lax up, they smelt it and they started coming out. And I'm saying that to say back to what you said about crime.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Certain people that are very nefarious, they have those antennas. And not to say that the tears would represent weakness, but they may just misread it. Like I said, they may misunderstand it. So I don't know. You know, it depends.
Yes, sir. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to put this on YouTube, Brother Alex. Another question I wanted to ask, speaking of Minister Hafiz, dealing with the 5% unity. Like, so a lot of the guests I've had, I mean, have been guys and nerves, whether they're active or that's how they join the nation, but it's been that way. But there's also been another side of tension of that. How can we unite? Respect, like we're a respectful thing where it's like if I see somebody from guys and earth, it's like it's not on site. It's not tension. Right. It's like Assalamu alaikum. It's like peace guys and keep it moving.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I said, I've always the language of the lessons. When I first came back home, I would be so happy to see the 5% brothers. Because how many people are you going to run across in your movements that speak your language? And I would get elated when I see the flag and I'd read them. But what's happened is that, like with the music, the enemy comes and he gets in between the older ones and the younger ones. And he gets in between them and he introduces something different to the younger ones. But let me back up though. I used to always say, if you run into a 5%er that doesn't have somewhat of a problem with the Nation of Islam, he's not representing. Meaning because the birth of the 5%er was because of, like Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, the law by which a thing comes into existence will determine its nature. Well, the 5% nation was started from a certain dissension. Some say Clarence 13X was put out. Some say he left, but whatever it is, it was an issue. That issue is always there, or even not even necessarily 5%. I had a brother that was dating. I guess he was dating the sister, and he was saying how she accepts. They don't argue over the teachings and what have you. And the first thing I asked him was, have you ever seen her get angry? And he hadn't. And I said, you have to understand, brother, that not everybody wants to argue. Not everybody wants to debate and get in your face. I said, but if a person doesn't believe like you believe, that means they have a problem with something that you believe. Otherwise, they believe it. So you have that, but it was always, and it's funny, the last time I saw Brother Hafiz was at the Show and Prove rally that the 5%ers have up here every year. That's the last time I saw him. Your question was, the unity and yes, what have you. Yeah, but it's taken on something else now. And I remember reading in Brother Wakil Allah's book, he mentioned that like whenever Clarence 13X would go to prison or be in Mattawan, the enemy would use that as a time to change their teachings. So, and I believe that's what's happened now, because the level of contention, it doesn't make sense. It's like the Quran, listening for the sake of a lie. And then again, I'm 51 years old. There are things being said now that are new. It's never been said before. So, which means it could be traced to a certain point. When did that start? Who started that? Because for 40 years, nobody's said that. For 40, that's not been a problem. So the Quran says argue in the best manner. That's the only way to deal with that. And I learned something when I took Dianetics, and it says sometimes you just have to pick an agreement.
Mm.
You know, too many times we listening for the sake of a lie, but at some point somebody's saying something that you agree with, and let's start there. Let's start there so that we don't just out the gate just start banging. You know, eventually, I mean, we're adults. We're gonna have to deal with the realities of what we don't agree on. But why start there? And I think that's the only thing we can really do about it is to argue in the best manner, because there are issues there that and it's almost like us making the devil. You know, the devil was made because we had issues, and as long as those issues were there, we would never have peace.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So a devil was made so that all the issues would come out and we could what? Deal with them. Well, that's in our relationships. You know, you if there's issues at some point, we have to deal with it, but we have to deal with it wisely.
Excellent teacher, brother. Yes, sir. Excellent teacher. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And thank everybody who continues to watch the People's Podcast. For those who, a lot, like you said, there's generation gaps. The younger generation, I feel like, I guess, and it's always been that way. You know, if you do a bid, you do prison, you just hard, you tough, you cool. What would you say? Could you give us a story or something that you've experienced to try to kind of warn people from wanting to go to prison? If that makes sense.
Well, what I always say is that we have a tendency, those that have been in and come out, we like to share war stories. You know, what I did, what I've seen happen, where I've been, but nobody likes to talk about your personal, that the first time, just brother, I spent all my almost my whole 20s in prison. Mm. That's not natural, and that's not normal.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You could just start with just not being around women. That actually hurts physically. You know, just wrapping your mind around the fact that there's no women, you know, or I can't leave, or, you know, just the people don't talk, but that I don't care how many people you're knocking up, or how many people, not knocking out, or how many people you're chopping up or cutting, or, you know, how much pull you got in the prison, you lock in like everybody else. You know, your family dying while you're in there like everybody else. That has nothing to do with how hard you are. You know, that has nothing to do with clout and rep and all of that. These are things you have to, I tell you a story, brother. There was a brother from Cincinnati that was taken back to court. And while he was out at court, we found that he had gotten a life sentence. And when he came back, I didn't want to see him because what do you want to tell him? What would I say? And I heard that he was outside. He wanted to see me, and it was close to evening. It was like we were in like a medium security, and it was close to evening. And there was another brother that this brother was like he had no Islam in him. You know, he was a disciple. And on my way out, he said, "Brother, I want to talk to you when you come back." So when I went outside and I'm talking to the brother, and the brother was FOI that I'm talking to, they went and got life. And I was young at the time, so I'm not proud, but as he was talking, I don't even think I was listening to him. I was looking over his shoulder at the sun go down, because I was saying to myself, just don't cry, you know, we got to, you know, I knew it in a couple of minutes they were going to call lockdown. I just didn't want to see the brother cry. And I couldn't tell him anything. I just wanted to get away from him. And so he's talking, and like I said, I don't remember anything that he said. I'm watching the sun go down over his shoulder. So eventually they called lockdown. So I get in, and I'm still affected because, you know, we were very tight, all of the brothers. So I remember that the brother the disciple brother wanted to speak to me. So I'm saying, really, that's kind of what I need right now, something light. This brother don't never had nothing on his mind. And he ain't, I just got through. The brother didn't cry. And I was, let me go deal with something light. I went in this brother's cell. He looked at me and he broke down crying. He just started, I can't take it, brothers, it's too much, And so the one that I was expecting to cry didn't cry. The one that I was expecting some relief from, he hit me with the tears. And you see, and that's one of the beautiful things about being in the Nation of Islam. Brothers will come to you like that. Brothers will do that. The song, I still play it. The KC JoJo Life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Every time I hear that song, it haunts me because I don't know. I always said I was going to research who wrote that, because when you hear that song, he tapped into something. Because I've had that conversation with brothers. You have young brothers. They ask me how to get life. I mean, I know I did wrong. I know. But life, how to give me life? Brothers have asked me that. Brothers have come to me like that. I've had brothers. One Jamaican brother, he came next to me with a Bible and he just pushed it at me. And I said, he says, show me something in there that explains this. Show me something in the Bible, So it's those little things. But like I said, being in the Nation of Islam and kind of like being above the prison drama and above the prison politics, brothers will let you see that side. But we don't often let each other, the ones that need to see it and to hear that, we don't share that with them because it's painful. Prison doing time is painful. It hurts to be in the last place you want to be and to not be able to. Do you know, like even now, when I have nightmares, I don't think I've ever had recently, but for years, I've never had a nightmare where I was in prison. All of my nightmares is that I do something and I mess up so bad that I'm going to prison. And my nightmare is me sitting there and I said, damn, I did this thing and eventually they're gonna catch me. And if I did it so well, no way I'm gonna get away. And the nightmare part is when I realize they're gonna catch me. They're gonna send me to prison, So that's what I would tell them. The things that people don't tell them.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. My sister Naima says, thank you for sharing your testimony. And I'm saying on behalf of myself and my family and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we thank you for your transparency and thank you for your sacrifice, Brother Alex, and the sacrifice of your family, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Yes, sir. We have a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. I want to make sure I thank everybody. And we come right back to Brother Alex. Okay, here we go. All right, 1 second. All right. And everybody who's watching, if you would like to be a sponsor or donor, please cash out the People's Podcast. We thank you very much. My brother Rashad, Street Premier Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out to him if you need any of that. My sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book, both of which are available on Amazon. Please go out and get those. My sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. And right here in the studio in Atlanta, Georgia, we love our tiny dancers. Sister Rashida Rafat, 5-year special promotion for Rock Communications. If you are working on a book and you need copy editing, content development, or media relations, please reach out to Sister Rashida Rafat, Rock Communications. Student Minister Robert L. Muhammad, Conflict Mediation, Squashing the Beef, out of Austin, Texas, in the Southwest region. Thank you for your work, sir. Sister Fudia Muhammad, Children of the Most High, Giving Birth to a God in the Science of Child Rearing. Please reach out to her for that book. Brother Kenneth, Bow Tie Maker Extraordinaire. He'll ship bow ties to you anywhere in the country. We're coming right back to our brother Alex. Sister Sherry Muhammad, AsiaticMinds.com, a virtual school that teaches STEM to young kings and queens virtually all across the country. Thank you very much, Sister Sherry. Fashion Gods, urban streetwear clothing for men and boys. Instagram Fashion Gods 314. The phone number is 314-329-5009. Fashion Gods. Thank you very much. Also, Dr. Henry M. Carter, King Henry Circulegs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad, COVID-19 disinfecting cleaning services out of Chicago. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, AbdulSharif.com, and Down Is Not Out. And last but not least, my 2 books, Cleopatra, No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Thank you all very much. Right back to our brother Alex, who's giving us, I mean, this is an amazing interview. Okay, so brother Alex, all right, boom. Okay, so here we go. I wanted to ask you, man, you gave me so much that the last 5 minutes, I was like, oh man, you give me so many points. Okay, the prison riots.
Yes.
So can you go into that?
Yes, brother. In 1995, right after the Million Man March and the OJ verdict, Million Man March. Now, the thing I told you earlier about the crack law, it fascinated me how a lot of us who, hustling or, running the streets and, involved in crime would come to prison, and the law that they passed was so unbalanced and unfair that a large amount of brothers thought it was a mistake. That go back to the student enrollment. You see it now with COVID. I said we stumble over the title, student enrollment, but we also stumble over the first two questions. Well, not stumble. When we reject who the original man is and who the colored man is, our whole life goes awry because you don't know yourself. You don't know your enemy. You don't know your enemy as the devil. So when he does devilishment, you think it's beyond him to do that. So you had all of these brothers with this time, and they really sitting and they're thinking that these white people made a mistake. So every November, I don't even know what happened. Something in Congress or the Senate, they vote on things in November. Every year, brothers would be waiting for November and expecting the law to change. Even I remember one brother, little brother out of Harlem, a Puerto Rican brother. He was about this big. They call him Shorty Buck 40. And the night that Clinton won the presidency, I was in my cell and he came by. You heard that, brother? We going home. We going home, brother. Because he thought that Clinton was going to do something for us. And it used to fascinate me how these hardened criminals were still gullible when it came to who their enemy was. So this particular year, 95, I don't know if I never kept up with that, the November thing. But this was October. They televised the vote, from what I understand. And they shot it down. But after they shot it down, Sister Maxine Waters spoke. To this day, I haven't heard what she said. And she must have spoken so passionately that you had riots started going through the federal system in a way that's never happened before. And I don't think it's happened since. But one after the other, they started going up. It started in Talladega, Alabama. That's a private shout out to my brother Fred. But that's where it started. And some prisons were worse than others. The particular prison that I was in, at the time, it was a medium security. And with us, it wasn't that bad because they locked everything down. So you couldn't come out of your block. And there was a small riot in the block. I'm trying not to get into everything. Not that I mind, it's just sake of time. But I will say this with let's say with How to Live. I remember let's say they locked things down, let's say 3 o'clock in the morning. Myself and brother Cyril out of San Francisco, California. We walked around the unit just checking on things. There was an older brother that was in the block, probably the oldest brother. So we went and checked on him. Then there was an old Italian mafia guy. So I didn't know where his cell was, but we went to the cell where all the mafia dudes hung out. And when I went in the cell, I didn't see the old man. So I asked him, where's the old man? So they told me where he was. So we even went to check on him, make sure he was all right. We're walking around. The sun hasn't even come up yet. And there's this little brother. I walked by, felt somebody pulling my pants leg. And I looked down. He said, "I'm hungry, brother." And I'm thinking, I said, it just started. The sun ain't even up yet. It's been we 4 hours into a situation. and this brother's hungry. But that's when you started seeing discipline breaking down, and you could see on the other blocks where the riot squads were lined up. So we're watching, we're locked in, we could see them going into the first block. So when they go inside, you started hearing explosions. And the brothers freaked out. You know, they thought they were killing them in there. So, I mean, like, it was like a bunch of monkeys just tearing things up because they thought that they killed them. They must be coming to kill us. And I remembered what the minister said. The minister said that there are certain emotions that are like the weather. You know, like if a hurricane or a tornado is coming, there's things you can do to prepare for it. But once it gets there, you just get out of the way and you hunker down. He said, you have to realize when people get like that. And I remember standing there, seeing that. I said, this is one of those times. You can't say nothing to nobody right now because they're panicking. So eventually things started to calm down. And I gave a speech when things calmed down because it really was supposed to be a work strike. And the fact that some of you got scared and did all of this has nothing to do. I said, now they could come in and do whatever they want. I said, but if you just stop working, they would have to ask why you're not working. They would have to talk to us. They don't have to say nothing now. They just come in to override. And after I said that, brothers they had barricaded the doors. Some of the people had just started taking the barricade. Now, I didn't say nothing about taking the barricade. They started taking the barricade down. And I remember one of our gay brothers, I just remember looking over, he had his broom and he was sweeping up the glass, right? So I went up to my cell and one of the Gambinos, mafia guys came up and he said, Nation of Islam? I said, yes, sir. He stuck out his hand. I respect you guys. He turned around and left. So we see them coming. You know, they went through all of the blocks. Oh, and before that, I remember sitting, and it kind of broke my heart a little. I was sitting in the TV room where I could watch, because everybody's locked in. So you're watching them go from block to block, and you're seeing them taking certain people out. Every block they went in, I saw them taking the brothers out, the FOI, you know, and just watching them. I mean, every block, they cleared out the FOI, cleared out the FOI. So when they get to our block, they're getting ready to come in. I just like to read military books. So I'm standing on the tier and I'm looking down diagonally at the door. So one of the lieutenants sticks his head in and tells everybody to get in their cell. So everybody's running to get in their cell. And for whatever reason, I wasn't thinking, I'm not moving because I wanted to see how they came in. And it got to the point where so many people had went back to their cell. Now he's looking at me, talking to me, get in your cell, get in. But it's almost like I'm not registering it. You know, I'm just not moving. So you see him, he says it, and he looks at me like, what's wrong? And he sticks his head back out. He comes back, he has something in his hand, and he throws it under where I'm standing. It's one of those bombs, but they call them a concussion bomb, where they sound like a bomb, but they don't blow you up, but it's to scare you. So he throws the concussion bomb under, it goes off. I took 3 steps back and I went back to where I was. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I went back. So then, and Brother Cyril's still there and he don't want to leave me, but because I wasn't thinking, and he didn't leave. And so eventually they're coming in. And so I said, now it's time to get to my cell. It's all the way over there. And I'm supposed to be so military minded. I forgot there was a back door. So I'm hearing them coming up the back way. I didn't factor it. I think everybody's coming through the front while I was watching. And then I panicked. I mean, brother, I cannot lie to you. I was scrambling like a roach, brother. I was trying to get to that cell because I knew if they caught me out there, that was it. So I made it to the cell and I was bunking with a brother that was FOI out of Cleveland, Brother Tyrone. And Brother Tyrone, he used to be known as Dirty Red. Now, Brother Tyrone was probably as dark as Brother Khaled, but they used to call him Dirty Red.
Mm.
And he was one of the main extortionists. He used to extort brothers. He was running weed. So we had a lot of brothers that were joining the Nation of Islam that were very well respected, like shot callers in the prison.
Yes, sir. Yes,
where,
sir.
you know, we had everything buzzing because, you know, the brothers that ran the weed, next thing you know, he's FY. Brother Rich out of LA is a captain in LA. He was an OG Crip then. He joined the Nation of Islam. So we had brothers like that joining. One brother came up to me one day, said, I don't know what y'all doing, but y'all doing something, because he's watching the type of brothers that are standing up. So I'm in there with brother Tyrone. Before he was in the Nation, he was one of them brothers, like in The Godfather. They said Luca Brasi. They said he even made the Don nervous.
Yes,
That's
yes,
how I used to be with brother Tyrone. I didn't like for him to be around me because he was just, you know, that's why they call him Dirty Red. He was involved in a lot of things, right? So we ended up being in the cell together. And so we hear them running, you know, they beating a couple of people, we hear all of the commotion. And when it calms down, now brother Tyrone and I are sitting on the bottom bunk. When all of the commotion calms down, they call my slave name. That's the first thing out of their mouth. So they call my slave name. And I hear somebody say, he's in cell 227. So brother Tyrone, he looks at me like in the cartoons, like, huh? You know, I'm sitting there because, you know, they coming to us. And so all you see is helmets, because it was a pretty, like one of the new jails with not the, had the doors with the glass.
Yes, sir.
So all you see is helmets. So they ask who, you know, they call me by my slave name. So they tell me stand up and turn around. So they said, take 3 steps back. So when I take the 3 steps back, that was also like a cartoon. All I felt was hands. And they snatched me out of the cell. And they had these, they call them rib spreader bludgeons. They're like nightsticks, but they have a little silver ball on the tip. So that they hit you with it, the ball gets in between your ribs. And so they had that, but they had it stuck in my spine. And now I'm 6'1". When they moved me to go down the stairs, my feet didn't touch the ground. That's how big these crackers were that had me. Now check this out, brother. When we go, I'm the first one they took out. When we get out of the block, all of the white people that are in plain clothes, like the big cheeses, they're outside. It's a group of them. And when he called my name, my slave name is McClymont. He said, this is McClymont. And I heard them make a sound. And it was only last year I understood that it was like a groan, but it's like they all made it at the same time. And it hit me maybe last year. I was laying in bed thinking, and I said, that sound that they made, I am certain that that's the sound that our brothers and sisters would hear before they got lynched. I never heard it before, and I haven't heard it since. And the warden, the associate warden, was there, and he said, once he said it was who I was, he said, take him to R&D, check him for weapons, strip him if you have to. But he said it with such venom, like it was personal, like we knew each other, like, you know, it was personal. And by the time it was over, not all, but a few of the FOI, some FOI they put in the hole, but a lot of us they put in R&D. Skip up a little bit. A couple of months later, I was because they ended up taking it to the Supermax in Marion, Illinois. I was reading a book called Missing about about the Chilean Revolution in, I think it's 72 maybe. And that's one, I think it might be the only time I read a book that scared me. So I was reading this book and they were talking about after they had the coup, when they were marching the people out, some would go right and some would go left to the stadium. And the ones that went to the stadiums are the ones that they murdered. And I realized that's what they did to us. The only difference is they sent us to the Supermax, but they didn't kill us. And that goes back again to the federal system. When you're in the federal system, if you pay attention, you're really seeing the blueprint of how they run everything. See, the blueprint they use to run the federal system is the same thing they use to run countries. You know, it's the same teaching, you know. So anyway, they put us on a bus. They rode us for 20 hours. And They took us to Marion, Illinois. Now, Marion, Illinois is the first, when you hear about these Supermaxes, Marion, Illinois is the first Supermax in America. It's, they didn't want to say that it replaced Alcatraz, but they closed down Alcatraz, but they didn't want people to say it was replacing Alcatraz, so they just let it sit for a little while. They had regular convicts there. Then slowly they started bringing the same people that was in Alcatraz to Marion. They have, the control unit, the lockdown units. That started after the Attica riots. When you had the Attica riots, that's where they were taking the brothers, putting them in Marion, locking them down. So we ended up there. Now, that night, the whole time I was in prison up until then, I never feared for my safety for whatever reason. And I'm not saying it like I was, rambunctious like that. It's just, I just didn't really worry about it. Those couple of days I was scared because I knew, like I told the brothers back then, they can do whatever they want now. They had brothers that lost arms and, they were beating brothers and saying, this is for OJ. This is for the Million Man March. They were just doing whatever they wanted to do. So at a certain point, we're being on the intake. And I remember one brother, they hit him with one of those rib spreader bludgeons. And they had us all sitting on the floor in the basement with the pipes steaming and they had a doctor coming by, looking in our ears or nose or something. And he would just go from one to the other. He didn't change, he just going from one to the other, looking in our ear. So one brother told the doctor, he said, they hit me in the ribs. I think, they messed something up. And the doctor told him, he said, shut the F up before I punch you in the face. He's a doctor now. So at a certain point, they broke us up. And at one at a time, you have to go into this room. They strip search you, strip you naked, and they put you on a stage. Brother Love that you had spoken with, he always talks about that. That I don't want to say messed him up, but he remembers that stage, being on that stage naked. 30 years later, he still brings it up. And so do I, in fact. But so I remember standing there, and they're sitting. Some of them are sitting, some of them standing. They're all white, buck naked, and one of them says, "So who you with?" Now, and again, my brain kind of locked because most of my time was on the East Coast. And because of that, you didn't really have a lot of gang activity going on in the East Coast. So I'd never been asked that before. So it took me a minute to figure out what he was asking, but I didn't have a minute because they were looking for a reason to beat you. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't the time for my brain to freeze and to not answer this guy's question. So he says, "Who you with?" And so I'm thinking, who I'm with. I couldn't figure out what is he asking me. And so now he's getting more frustrated. Then, "Who you with?" And so now I'm starting to get nervous because I hear it. I hear the violence coming. Like, he says, "Who you with?" And then it clicked, and I said, "Oh, you talking about gangs?" He said, "Yeah, who you with?" I said, "Farrakhan." And everybody just calmed down. Okay, we got a box for that too, And we moved on, and we met brothers that were from Talladega, Alabama, Florida. There's brothers from all over. And in Marion, you're locked down for 22 and a half hours a day. That's considered general population. And you're watching people that you come there with go crazy. I was there for 3 years. You're watching people that you arrived there with. None of the FOI, but there were other brothers there. You're watching them go crazy because they call Marion attitude adjustment. And they have what you call a program, 2-year program, 5-year program. And I remember debating, because everybody said, yeah, they're gonna make you do the program. They'll probably give you all the 18-month program. They'll probably do that. So I remember thinking, you know what? I have 3 years left. I'm not doing no program. I'm gonna just go home from here. And months went by, and I'm waiting for somebody to ask me about the program. I'm waiting for, fill out some papers or, I'm gonna ask me to fill out the papers. And then I realized the program is they throw you in this cell and tell you to deal with it. And they try to drive you crazy. They try to drive you crazy. You know, they are. You have COs that have been there so long they can't go anyplace else because they treat you so bad there because you're locked down. Because in marriage, you don't walk with the officers. They don't come where you are. So if they have to come get you, 4 or 5 of them, they'll shackle you up. They'll take you to the dentist. And when you get to the dentist, you're getting your teeth checked, shackled. They're on one side, you're on the other. We're self-contained, and they're on the other side. Yeah, and that's I forgot what my point, but that is how they ran that particular institution. There are brothers that I met there, like Brother Love. That's why I met Brother Love. My brother I mentioned, Brother Fred. I met brothers there. We still, I spoke to both of them yesterday. Because I always say that being in prison is like being blood brothers because you're suffering together. So you become something in addition to being brothers in faith and in belief. You become blood brothers.
Man, praise be to Allah that you hear, brother Alex. I mean, my goodness, man, my Lord, yes, sir. My sister Miriam said, "Oh Allah," and it sounds like slavery. So you're saying because you said Farrakhan, did you avoid? They didn't get you?
No, it's. We had, even before we got there, we had issues with them. It was always a struggle. But I've never been in the military, but I would make my bunk the way I thought they would make it in the military. Mm-hmm. That would resonate with some of them. They would see the way we moved. They respected us. I remember one brother, he was our captain at the time, Brother Eugene, and he was a big, big brother. And he started eating 1 meal a day. And he had lost a lot of weight. And one of the guards came to him one day and told him how much he respected him, because even though he started eating 1 meal a day and he had lost all the weight, he was still going to the weight room and he was still lifting up the whole gym. And they couldn't understand that, how he got small, but he didn't lose strength. So we moved. I mean, we were very, very organized and very coordinated, and because we had good teachers, so we had people that had structure there that taught us how to do it, and we would watch the videos. We learned how to not learn how to hold posts, but there were issues we would have trouble with, and we would look at the minister's lections. We would watch the brothers on post, and we would learn like that. But to answer your question, once you got there, we really didn't have issues just because we were in the Nation of Islam. But when you get there, it's such a controlled environment. There's certain people. I went there with brothers that I never saw again, and they were there. So for 3 years, we in the same prison, but I never saw them. I would just hear that they were there. And one day, they were taking me somewhere, and one of the white convicts asked one of the officers, how come they don't serve bacon anymore? And he said, because there's not enough people here that eat it. That let me know how many believers they had put in the Supermax. They stopped serving bacon. But what they did do, I have a letter from Brother Abdullah. Brother Abdullah, I have to say, he rocked with us, from the joint we were in, and he wrote me a letter, and he said that the chaplain at Marion contacted him and said they've never had so many people proclaiming to be followers of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And from that point on, they started there's a closed circuit. They had a television they'd give everybody, and it would play channels over the institution. Every Tuesday, they started playing the minister. And because of that, they let you go out twice a week. And because they played the minister on Tuesdays was one of the days that they let us go out. So for those 3 years, I went outside for one time a week. So much so that when I came home and my mother saw me, the first thing she said was, I never knew you were so light. Because I was like 7 shades lighter than I am now, going from getting sun once a week for 3 years. Yeah, that's what it is, brother, what it was.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And my sisters are saying praise be to Allah. That's a true blessing. Okay, so you get out, you get to see your moms, you get a family. What made you choose the wife that you have now?
Well, actually, the wife that I have now is my second wife.
Okay. Yes.
That when I say second wife, I mean, divorce, remarried.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't know how people will take this, but my cousin Angie, that she did all of my time with me, meaning writing me letters, and in fact, let me just back up for a minute. At one point in Marion, there was a race war. It was on TV and everything. They had locked everything down, and I had been involved in it in a way. They tried to murder a brother named Ayub in front of me, because they have a thing they used to call baking a cake. Baking a cake is, if they don't like you, they have your jacket or your record, and they have who doesn't like you. So they, over time, it might take them a couple of months to do it. They'll start moving people who are allied with you out slowly. They start replacing them with people who are not allied with you. And then they'll throw in some Cubans to balance it out, because the Cubans were, if you're not Cuban, they ain't getting in it. And they did that to this brother. Now, in fact, I remember an older brother coming to me and saying, you need to watch out, youngster. I said, what do you mean? He said, they're baking a cake for somebody, because he saw the movements. He saw the way they were moving people around. He said, I don't know who it is, but they're baking a cake for somebody. Be careful. And it was for him. So the morning that they let us out, now, anybody with sense, they're up. When they crack the cells for you to go get your tray, you want to be up. A lot of people have gotten stabbed up and what have you, but it's laying in the bunk. So when I got up and I went to go get my tray, I saw the commotion behind me. 3 white guys, one of them had a pillowcase, and that's where they give you a TV, they give you a radio, but on the end of the radio is a big piece of metal where you would light your cigarettes if you smoke, like a car lighter. You hit a switch because they don't want to give you matches. So the radio was extra heavy. So I didn't realize the time, but when the Aryan Brotherhood, when they move, that's what they do. One will take you down, the other ones finish you off. And when I turned around and I saw the brother on the ground, my first thought was, I wonder what he did to them. Because in all the time I'd been in, I'd never seen white boys move on a brother before like that. So I said, he must have really, and we have a reputation for being kind of scandalous in the joint, right? So that was my first thought, that he must have been gambling, debt, or something. And so and that's what saved me. I didn't know that they'd moved him in the night before, so I'd never seen him before. And I'm walking, and I'm saying to and I have to be honest with you, brother, I felt nothing. I didn't feel anything, which is probably what, with the help of Allah, to save me. My thoughts was, he probably did something. I said, but I can't go through the rest of my life saying I watched some white dudes kill a brother in front of me. So when I got up, now, and also another thing that was in our favor was that only one of them was Aryan Brotherhood. And I will say this, and I hope I don't lose my point. In prison, there's skinheads, you even have Ku Klux Klan, you have all of these different organizations. You put them in prison, a lot of skinheads, they'll grow their hair long, the clans they'll disavow it. He said, but the Aryan Brotherhood, they'll go to war with you. That's a prison gang. See, the skinheads, they're usually somewhere in the suburbs. And if you make a mistake and come out there, they'll stomp you out with the Doc Martens and all of that. Or they run across you in the mall, it's enough of them, they'll get into a scuffle with you. Same thing with the Klan, they often the stick somewhere in their neighborhood, and but the Aryan Brother, that's a prison gang. It started in the middle of brothers. and they have a thing called zero disrespect. I mean, and they won't bother you. They will not bother you. But once they hit the switch, they will go to war with you. But only one of them was an Aryan, and he and I happened to be on decent terms because when they put you there, you are only around those 35 other people. So if nobody knows how to cut hair, you just don't get a good haircut. If nobody knows the law, you don't have nobody to help you on your case. And like I said, I like to read. So Mario Puzo's book, The Last Dawn, came out. And I had a copy of it. The only one on and the guy saw it, the head of the Aryan Brotherhood. And he asked me if he could read it. And we developed a relationship over books because he happened to like to read too. In fact, he taught me how to order certain books because I would always try, not so much there, but the other institutions, to get books with just a little bit of martial arts in it. But they would stop it. Every once in a while, they might let one through. So he said, no, what you have to do is you have to get novels. You have to get certain novels that have martial arts in it. They won't catch that. And he told me which ones to get, and he was right. But anyway, so when I went to help, I saw him walk behind me. But I never turned around, for whatever reason. And he's the one that had the pillowcase. So the two of them were on the brother. I took one by his shoulders and I stood him up. And when I stood him up, I did like that. And I said, let them two fight. And he stopped. So now the two, they're banging. Long story short, I don't want to bore you with that particular story. I ended up doing like 4 months in the hole for helping the brother because the police, the guards set him up. And when they got everything under control, one of them came to my cell and said, who told you to stick your face in? He was angry with me that they didn't kill the brother. And so they had the race war was circling around that. Now, I'm sorry, brother, I forgot what you asked me because I know it had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with that. I called myself making a detour and I got lost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was about
my wife.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My wife. Oh, and I was telling you about my cousin. Right, that's what it was. So when all of this was going on, my cousin, she wrote me. When I first went in, she would write me and I wouldn't write her back. And eventually I started writing her back and we became, she rocked with me the whole time. So while all of this is going on, they had a thing called testing the waters. So it's a riot, race war, really. We're in the hole. Whenever they wanted to see if the race war was still kicking, they would grab somebody and they'd put them back out to test the waters and see what happens. And every time they would do it, the person, well, what we would do is what they would do. I really didn't do that, but they would let somebody go. You would hear the alarms go off. You knew it had something to do with that person. So now all you do is you wait to see who comes to the hole. If the brother comes to the hole, that means the white dude caught a bad one. If the white dude comes to the hole, that means the brother caught a bad one. And that went on for a while. And I know that my name was kind of on a list because I had thwarted the thing with the guy they really wanted. So I wrote my cousin a letter, but it was like regular, yeah, everything. Then I thought about it. I said, no, this is serious. I sat and I wrote her another letter and I explained everything that was going on. A few weeks after that, I get a letter from her that says, I spoke to your brother, Kevin. Now, my father, when she said, I spoke to your brother, Kevin, I just thought I had another brother out there named Kevin, which was very feasible.
Yes, sir.
And I didn't come to find out, maybe until I got home, she was talking about brother Hafiz. She had contacted brother Hafiz. And one day when I first started driving for him, I mentioned that to him. He said, oh, that was you? And he started like, that was you, brother? And but yeah, so she had, but anyway, my cousin, and this is the part I said, I don't know how this will go over. 1 year for my birthday, she gave me a reading from a lady that does readings, right? That was her birthday present to me. And the way the lady did, white lady, you know, once she paid her, you send her, I think, 2 pictures. She'll tell you, sort of like what you did. We're gonna talk on this particular day, and she records it. You know, so after you're done, she send you a tape, right? So she's saying things. You know, she's saying things that you can't dismiss. And at one point, now I'm married. At the time, I'm married to my first wife, and she says, "Who's the other woman?" And at the time, just so happens there was no other woman. Right? So I said, "There's no other woman." And she said, "Well, you're gonna meet her, and she's gonna help you. Her name starts with an L, right?" And so things didn't work out with my first wife. I forgot about it. So one day I meet, not one day, but I end up meeting my wife now. Her name is Lorraine, right? And I drove her to Medgar Evers College, and for whatever reason, I'm playing the tape, but I'd forgotten about the who's the other woman, you know. And when it said, you know, she's gonna help you, and her name, I knew. I said, "Damn, this, you know, it."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is what it is, or it
Yes,
ain't what it ain't. But like that's my wife. I don't want to say she lives to help me, but she's a help me. You know, I remember when she was younger, she made some rice, and you know, I was very careful. I said, you know, babe, you know, when you make the rice, you know, you could ease up on the seasoning just a little bit. You know, I said it. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. You know, I was considerate.
Yes,
She
sir.
looked at me and she just broke out crying. You know, like I stomped on her toes or something, right? But and I'm saying that just to say that what that white lady said about she's gonna help you, you know, that's, I have to even be careful what I say to her because she'll make it happen, you know. But I heard I think it was Brother Ishmael say that when you have a good wife, believing wife, teaches you how you should be with Allah. You learn that from her. But so yeah, so those are the things that as far as my wife is concerned.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. I just have 2 more questions for you, sir.
Sure.
What type of music do you listen to?
I listen to hip hop more than anything, but it's getting harder and harder to find what I like. I don't listen to old school hip hop. Yeah, but I like brothers like Planet Asia, Aguilar, 5% brothers. I like a lot of the, you know, the 5% brothers. Yeah, I listen to hip hop mostly. Yeah, that's pretty much you know what meaning, like what's on my phone is 99.9% of it is hip hop.
Beautiful.
Because
yes,
remember, at my age, I remember when hip hop started. You know, so you know, it's like I said, the law by which a thing comes into existence determines its nature. You know, so maybe that's why. But I've always followed that. It's just getting harder because you know the people that they put in front of us are not necessarily who I listen to. I should say not, they're not who I listen to.
Yes, sir. Well, Brother Alex, we're almost at 2 hours, so I want to make sure that I just want to ask you, not putting you on the spot, but man, can you come back for a part 2?
Of course, brother.
Okay,
of
yes,
course.
sir.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to even to do a part 1.
Oh no, this is my honor, man. I'm telling you, this is some powerful stuff. And me being a writer and someone who's in the creative zone, you got me like this is Oz, American History X. Like you got me in these like prison. I'm like, yo, this is like Shawshank Redemption. And I'm walking it through you paint the picture, brother. You paint the picture, brother. I'm like, damn, man. Yes, sir. Okay, what do you want your legacy to be, Brother Alex?
Well, I started and this might not be my number 1 legacy, but we have another brother Ahmed Shaheed, that passed When I left married, there was a brother that I was friends with. He was a Crip from California. I don't want to say the first real, but he's the first person I ever met that Cripping was like his religion. He used to tell me, he said, Brother Alex, when I was on the street, we didn't even stop for red lights, and I believed him, And at one point he told me, we got to be really, really cool. And he said, brother, you're the first friend I've ever had to go home. Because in marrying, the average amount of time is 64 and a half years. In fact, we're the first ones to go home from there. Brother Fred used to say that for years. I didn't know what he meant. He said, we're the first ones to leave from there. And it's only like a couple of years ago, I realized what he meant, meaning that before we got to marrying, you couldn't go home from marrying. Because they have 6 levels that they had. I don't know how to do it now. It was 6 levels. Marrying was a level 6. You couldn't go home from a level 6. You had to go someplace else, and then you go from there. So when it was time for me to go home, they didn't even know how to do my paperwork. They would get on the phone, and I was doing my own fingerprints and everything, right? So when I did go home, I'm thinking about the brother Mondo that said I was his first friend to go home. So I said, well, I have to represent as the first friend to go home. But he was, he wasn't hurting for money, and I didn't have no money to send him, really. And he had family that sent him books and magazines and things like that. He's the one that introduced me to Octavia Butler. Somebody sent it to him, and he didn't read it. He gave it to me, and I became an Octavia Butler fan. But so I thought about it. As crazy and as violent as he was, in his own way, he loved Black people. So I started carrying around a disposable camera and just taking pictures. I went to the Million Youth March. At the time, I wasn't even in the ranks. I went to the Million Youth March to take pictures. And almost got trampled because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gone. And I remember when I came out of the subway, I wasn't in the ranks at the time. I was AWOL. And when I came out of the subway, the first thing I noticed is I don't see no FOI. Brothers must have got instructions. Don't come out here. Right? I don't see no FOI. But so I was out there. So I started taking pictures. Years went by, and I started saying, I got all these pictures. Let me do something. I started playing around with editing. So as I edited the pictures, I ended up doing my first project was we had just moved to a mosque on another mosque in Brooklyn. And I took pictures and I did like a reopen. It's on YouTube somewhere, a reopening video. And Brother Shaheed loved that. So from that point on, and he had deep pockets. He would, whenever he had an event, I wouldn't film it because I didn't even have a camera then, really. But I would, a decent camera. But he would give me the footage and ask me to edit it for him. And the last one that I did, there's one of those messages he left me. I wish I would have kept it. The message, how you having a day and then something, you hear a voicemail, it just makes your day, because he was just so pleased with the work I had done. So he said, well, bro, I want to give you something. But that was arrangement anyway. He was going to pay me. So when I went to his office, now his office was in the old 7C that we had prior to 75. And so I'm there, and he plays a DVD of a documentary of Islam in America. But the documentary was done by members of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's family. So they're pictures that I never saw. And I'm a picture guy, I'm a reader, I'm a historian. So I'm tripping all these pictures of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's family I'd never seen before. So it's got me. Now, of course, when it gets to 75, it goes left. So at that point, he cuts it off. And I remember him, he was sitting there and he was rubbing the DVD player. And he said, brother, do you think that you could do something like this, but do it right? And I said, I've never done nothing like that. I said, but I think I could do it. And I called one of the brother I said that I credit with bringing me into Islam. He's in Atlanta, Brother Johnny. And I told him, and he got so excited. He said, brother, what do you need? I said, well, I need a camera. And the brother bought a camera, never took it to his house. He went to the store, bought a camera, gave him my address, and sent it to New York. And that camera now is famous in New York because all of the interviews that I did, we didn't even talk about that, but
that's why I said part 2.
Right. But damn, bro, I'm sorry, bro. I forgot what you asked me again.
Your legacy.
Okay, right. That right now, a lot of my energy is going into exposing people to the history of Black martial artists, primarily Dr. Moses Powell, that and like Brother Sabir, that people don't look up. When I met Brother Sabir and I met Grandmaster Victor Moore, it upset me that I grew up without knowing them. You know, I told Victor Moore, Grandmaster Victor Moore, I said, you have fans out there. The only reason they're not your fans is because they don't know you. If they knew you, they'd be your fan.
Absolutely.
You know, and so I came up and I interviewed 40 masters and grandmasters, and just to not just to introduce our people to them, but also the minister said that. I've heard him say that at one of Grandmaster Aziz's seminars. He said, those of you, now this is the minister talking to a room full of martial artists. And he said words to the effect that those of you that are blessed with your skill and this mastery of these arts, as the enemy starts to lose grip and power, the veil of civility is going to fall and he's going to get more vicious. Okay, I'm paraphrasing. He said, it's your job is to teach the people quickly. So that's kind of like what my goal is, to gather certain martial artists that know how to teach people quickly. Not everybody comes to martial arts to become a master or to get a black belt or to be there for a long period of time. But everybody, that shouldn't stop you from being exposed to material. And not everybody knows how to, like Brother Sabir told, you probably heard him say this. He said, you have some people that can teach, but they can't fight. And you have some that can't teach, but they can fight like hell.
Yes, sir.
He said, what you need is a teacher that knows how to fight.
Mm.
You know, that's not everybody. You know, something normally we kind of think that when a brother can fight, he can teach. But if he can't teach, he's of no use unless you're together and something happens. So I'm looking for teachers. That's what I meant with Brother Hafiz. That's why I believe Brother Hafiz affected me so much, because he was a teacher.
Yes, sir.
You know? And so that's what I would like my legacy to be. I would like to establish something, which the beginning stages of that have begun, that our people can get high quality condensed training.
Praise be to Allah. Excellent. Well, I want to thank you very much, Brother Alex. Thank everybody who's continuing to watch with us. I can't wait to put this on YouTube tonight. I look forward to part 2, Brother Alex, inshallah.
Yes, sir.
And may Allah continue to bless you and your family. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank
much.
you. The honor is mine, sir.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.